I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's revisit the Justin Trudeau SNC-Lavalin case. We did a video on this, I believe maybe 3-4 months ago when this story first broke. And we've got an update on this, and it kind of coincides with the elections coming up in October. And that's something that we'll also discuss in this video because the elections are really tight. And it's going to be an interesting October, that's for sure, with Brexit and the elections in Canada coming up. But we do have this from Reuters, Alexander, and I'm going to read it to you. The title is Ethics Breach Plunges Canada's Trudeau Back into Image Crisis Ahead of Vote. And the first paragraph reads like this. Independent Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion on Wednesday said Trudeau improperly pressured his former Attorney General to spare engineering firm SNC-Lavalin Group from a corruption trial. Alexander, give us some of the details as to what was going on with this investigation by Mario Dion and the report that he has submitted, which does say that Trudeau acted improperly, but I don't think it takes it any further than that, and it kind of leaves Trudeau, I would guess, in the clear to campaign and go for another term.
I think this is an important finding, but I don't think it gets anywhere to the bottom of what is actually a very, very troubling case, a very serious corruption case. Now, can I just lay out the SNC-Lavalin case as I understand it? SNC-Lavalin is a major engineering construction company. I believe it's based in Quebec, but it operates all over Canada. It obtains lots and lots of federal contracts. It turned out that, going way back over many, many years, it was involved in paying bribes to officials in Libya, to officials of Gaddafi's government. And this came out, and that violates Canadian federal law. Now, according to Canadian federal law, if a company obviously pays bribes in this way, they should be prosecuted. And also, if a company is convicted of this sort of corruption, it is banned from obtaining federal contracts for a period of 10 years. Now, if SNC-Lavalin is banned from obtaining federal contracts from the Canadian government, then apparently that would put the entire existence of this company in question. Its financial position is rocky, and it is very dependent on government contracts in order to survive. So what happened is that it then started lobbying very strongly the Canadian government for changes to the law to create something called a deferred prosecution agreement. We're going to go into a moment into what that is. And it's important to say that it found, or it seems to have found, a very receptive audience within the Canadian government. Now, this is the new Canadian government led by Justin Trudeau, who is a Liberal politician whose political electoral base is in Quebec, which is the same place that, as I said, SNC-Lavalin comes from. And then what happened was that in 2018, this government, this new Liberal government, presented a budget which, as within a clause in the budget, did change the law exactly in the way that SNC-Lavalin wanted, by introducing this new concept of a deferred prosecution agreement. And this would have allowed SNC-Lavalin to come to some kind of settlement with the Canadian government, which would have allowed it to escape formal prosecution and charge and continue to get these federal contracts. Now, it's important to stress this required a change in the law. Anyway, it then came before the Attorney General of Canada, who is a lady called Wilson-Raybould, And Wilson-Raybould said, no, you are not going to get this deferred prosecution agreement because the kind of crimes that you are charged with are too serious to allow for that sort of thing. And she then was forced to resign and said that she'd been put under tremendous pressure by Justin Trudeau's government to grant SNC-Lavalin this deferred prosecution agreement. Now, Trudeau has categorically denied that he put her under pressure. She has been thrown out of the Liberal Party, the ruling Liberal Party. There's been all kinds of criticisms of her from all sorts of sections of the Liberal Party and the Liberal media in Canada. But now the Ethics Commissioner has come forward and has said that she was actually right. She was brought under illicit pressure to force her to change, to drop this prosecution and to grant SNC-Lavalin this deferred prosecution agreement. Now, that's the overall story. But consider what we are discussing. We are discussing a company which has engaged in corruption. This is not disputed. We have had a change in the law apparently intended to benefit that company, smuggled within a budget, the government's budget. And we've had the country's leading law officer put under pressure to grant this company, this corrupt company, a deferred prosecution agreement of a kind which it required this change in the law to make. Now, to me, this is an extraordinary scandal. It suggests a very powerful company pulling strings within a government to get the law changed and to get the Attorney General sacked in order that it in effect gets immunity so that it can continue to get government contracts. Now, I think this repays very, very deep investigation, and the Ethics Commissioner's report is the first step in this. So, yes, I agree with you. This is not in itself a criminal referral against Justin Trudeau, but it certainly opens up a host of questions about the ethical conduct or non-ethical conduct, if you prefer, of his government.
Yeah, an ethical question about a man who peddles in identity politics, peddles in his superior moral compass and stuff like that. That's Trudeau. So he peddles in this stuff nonstop, and here he is, in the middle of what is, and I agree with you, a huge scandal. And the fact that you have Libya involved in bribes and corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really, really bad.
Well, it has a very bad smell. And can I just say, you're absolutely right about Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau parades as the great virtuous prime minister, political leader around the world. I mean, he constantly lectures everybody. He lectures the Chinese. He lectures the Russians. He's lectured Donald Trump. He parades within Canada as this great liberal figure. He's into identity politics. I believe that he's into legalizing or decriminalizing marijuana or whatever it is. But anyway, on any liberal issue that you can think of, you name it, he backs it. And he backs it with all kinds of sanctimony thrown in as well, always representing himself as this, virtuous, a pure prime minister. And yet, what do we see? We see, as I said, the prime minister of this virtuous government heading a government which changes the law in a hole-in-the-corner way through its budget, through an omnibus budget bill, and which puts pressure on its own attorney general in order to benefit a corrupt company. And when that attorney general speaks out, she gets criticized and thrown out of the ruling Liberal Party. So, I mean, it seems to me quite awful, actually. And I don't expect that there will be any in further criminal investigation or any sort of investigation before the election in October. I'm not even sure, actually, that any crime was committed. And I want to make that very clear. I'm not accusing Trudeau of any actual crime, but dishonorable misconduct by a prime minister does not need to be criminal in order to be deeply objectionable. And on any objective assessment, that's what this looks like. And I think it should weigh very heavily with Canadian voters when they come to vote in October.
You know what this exposes, Alexander? Then I'll get to my next question, and we'll talk about the October 21 elections. It just exposes the fact that Trudeau is no different than the neoliberal rat pack that he ran around with. He's just as despicable, just as much a hypocrite as Obama, as Hollande, as Cameron, as Merkel, as all these other people that were part of this neoliberal rat pack that literally destroyed the world when they were in power. And Trudeau and Merkel actually, I think, are the last of this rat pack, this neoliberal group, are they not? And Trudeau is no different than any of them. For all his virtue signaling and all his I'm better than everybody and I'm so virtuous, he is just as corrupt and just as dirty as all the rest.
Well, indeed. I mean, the big question is also, I mean, why all these steps taken to help SNC-Lavalin? Obviously, there's electoral benefits. It's a big company in Quebec. But, were there other things? I mean, if SNC-Lavalin were bribing people in Libya, were they bribing other people? What was going on? Can I just say, I'm very glad that you brought up Obama, because when I researched this case in preparation for this video, the case that it immediately reminded me of was Uranium One in the United States. It is so similar. Yet again, allegations of corruption involving all sorts of people. And again, an attempt through pulling of all sorts of wires to cover it up by an administration. In that case, it was the Obama administration. In this case, it is the Trudeau administration, which has represented itself as the absolute pinnacle of virtue, and which, when you look under the what's going on, you discover that in fact that virtue simply isn't there. And why stop at Uranium One? Why not consider all those programs that we've also done about the kind of things that the Bidens were doing in Ukraine and all sorts of other people have been doing, which have also not been looked at properly. So you're absolutely right.
So many billions and billions of dollars stolen from the people. Just it's unbelievable, and they're still in power. A lot of these people are still in power. And you're exactly right, and getting back to the elections that we're coming towards on October, Justin Trudeau actually justified his actions by saying he was standing up for Canadian jobs. And here's the interesting part about this story. I think it's one of the most interesting parts. Okay, so we had a lull in this story from when it broke up until this report came out. And when the story first broke, the Liberals got hit hard. And the Conservatives under Andrew Scheer, they gained a lot of ground and they were leading. Yes. But now, as time went on, the story started to fade away. Trudeau started to gain ground again. I believe the latest polls had Scheer up by, I believe, 2 to 3%. Our viewers, they may want to correct me if I'm wrong, but it was very close. It's getting very close again. So here comes this report, and we're going to ask ourselves, is this going to affect Trudeau? But the interesting part, as we head towards October, the interesting part is that many of the people in Quebec, they now support Trudeau because, as you rightly said, SNC-Lavalin is based there and it supports the community. So, you have this dynamic where the corruption actually helps Trudeau in the area where SNC-Lavalin is located.
Yes. Yes, and one wonders whether this isn't really what was driving the whole thing, whether it's not so much bribes changing hands within the Canadian government, of which there's no evidence, but whether it is in effect supporting a important company in Quebec, which is absolutely crucial to maintaining Trudeau's electoral majority. But can I just say, that is corruption of a different kind. Because it is allowing corrupt players like SNC-Lavalin to escape criminal consequences because they are so important to keeping the Prime Minister of the day, Justin Trudeau in this case, in power. And that seems to me every bit as corrupt as anything else, because it shows, if it's allowed to succeed, that the Prime Minister of Canada puts his own electoral survival over the administration, the proper administration of the law. Remember, the law was changed to benefit SNC-Lavalin, and the Attorney General was pressured to the point where she resigned in order to give this company the benefit of that change in the law. And can I just say something else? It seems that Trudeau himself, though he says that he accepts and takes responsibility for the Ethics Commissioner's report, he also says that he disagrees with its findings. So he takes responsibility. He doesn't agree with it. I mean, what does that mean? Exactly. He's laughing. Yeah. And can I just say, I mean, if I was a Canadian, which of course I'm not, I would be very concerned by this sort of thing. If I was a Quebecois, I would also be very concerned about this sort of thing, because politics should not work in that fashion in a properly functioning democracy. If privileged insiders like SNC-Lavalin are able to use connections to prosecute to politicians to avoid prosecution for crimes, and then that is an extremely bad situation in any country. And happening in Canada, whose Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is constantly lecturing Chinese, Russians, whoever you like, about corruption. I mean, it stinks.
Yeah, he's constantly lecturing the world about
absolutely
about all that stuff. It just gets exhausting listening to him. But Alexander,
I mean, can I just also say, I mean, it's the sort of thing that when it happens in Russia, and it used to happen quite a lot in Russia, as I remember, once upon a time. In the 1990s, it happened in Russia constantly. People like Justin Trudeau criticized it. If they found out about it now, they would criticize it again. Lots of the people who are being sanctioned in Russia are being sanctioned because they're supposed to have done bad things and are getting Russian contracts for them. Personally, by the way, I think most of those cases, the case has not been made against these people. Here is one case where the man himself, the person who preaches most about this kind of malpractice, has himself been caught carrying it out in the most, frankly, brazen way. And as you said, he's laughing. He says, I take responsibility, but I disagree with the conclusions.
Let me read you another quote and we'll wrap it up from Reuters, Alexander. Let's see. It's too early. This is from Reuters. It's too early for pollsters to measure the damage. But before the report, most polls had Scheer slightly leading or tied with Trudeau, while the Liberals were gaining momentum in the provinces key to winning a parliamentary majority, Ontario and Quebec. Just as you said, Alexander. And here's a quote from Scheer himself. Trudeau promised he would be different. Instead, we now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Justin Trudeau is not as advertised.
Well,
I think that sums it up pretty well there. He's not as advertised because Trudeau really is, a brand. He's a caricature in a way, a neoliberal identity politics caricature, but he is not as advertised.
He's not as advertised, and in fact, as far as I can see, he's worse than the other people within Canada that he's been criticizing. I mean, I've never heard in recent years of a scandal like this in Canada. No doubt people, in Canada will tell me all sorts of bad things happen. I'm sure that's right. But, Justin Trudeau sets himself up as the person who's different and better than all the others, better than the others in Canada, better than the others elsewhere. And it turns out he's worse.
Yeah, and we had a viewer who sent us an email the other day about the fact that Maxime Bernier, hope I'm pronouncing that right, and his People's Party, another party in Canada, is not even allowed to enter the debates, the leaders' debates that are going to be taking place as well. So, I mean, you have, you mentioned the similarities between what's going on in Canada, between Trudeau and Obama, Canada and the U.S. I mean, you see a lot of the same things. They're lecturing the world on democracy. And, when it comes to actually giving a voice to people, whether it be on the debate stage or during the elections, you don't have it.
No, they lecture the world on democracy, they lecture the world on the rule of law, they lecture the world on human rights, and they lecture the world about corruption.
But when it's home, when it's in their home country?
Well, of course, when it's in their own country, as we see in this case, and in so many others, different rules apply, at least where these people are concerned. I mean, they clearly feel that they have a kind of, shall we say, entitlement to do all of these things, and that the rules that they apply to other people don't apply to themselves.
Just to wrap it up, Alexander, I'll put you a little bit on the spot. If you were a betting man, do you think that Trudeau is going to ride this out come October 21st and win the elections, or do you think you're going to have a conservative government in Canada? If you had to read the tea leaves, you're always drinking tea. If you had to read the tea leaves, see where things are moving in the world, but also see the fact that, he does seem that he's weathered the storm with this controversy. At least that's what it seems like. The polls are very tight. Where would you place your bets?
I'm sorry to say that I think that if it hasn't sunk him by now, it probably won't sink him. He still seems to retain a strong base of support in Canada. I suspect most of the media in Canada supports him, and I think that he will probably come out on top in October. Having said that, I hope I'm wrong. We'll see.
I hope you're wrong too. All right, Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Click on the notifications bell to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video. And remember, you can get a copy of this video in audio format, so follow us on iTunes and on SoundCloud as well. And please donate to the Duran. We are on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar as well. The links are in the description box down below, and your donation really helps us out a lot. And you can also go to the Duran shop and you can pick up all kinds of great merchandise, magic mugs, polos, t-shirts, merchandise that Justin Trudeau would never wear. But we hope that you make a purchase and you wear it.
Oh, no, I mean, he would never wear anything with our proud double-headed eagle symbol. This is not him at all. I mean, we look both east and west, don't we, on our symbol here. You can see we have it on all our things. This is the Russian state double-headed eagle. But no way would Justin Trudeau ever drink from a mug like this. which is an excellent reason to buy a mug like this. And, it's 15 ounces. It's incredibly refreshing. It's invigorating. It keeps you pure and healthy, not like Justin Trudeau. And in fact, this is the sort of mug that actually Vladimir Putin, who is about as extremely different from Justin Trudeau as is possible to get in a world leader. This is the kind of mug he drinks from, because this is the Russian state symbol. This, by the way, which is my wife's favorite mug, is the Russian, it's the Moscow symbol. And here we see the knight, St. George, slaying the dragon of fake news, St. George, and the dragon of fake news and corruption. So that's obviously Justin Trudeau there, who's been slain, because this is what it looks like. and obviously I've got yet another mug next to me, which is the one with the Alpha Force, which is one of my friends. My wife likes it because the colours are so smart and it's actually so elegant. And it's, as I said, this is Russia's leading special forces unit. But this, I repeat, is our own double-headed eagle, which we're very, very proud of. It's not connected to the Russian ones. The double-headed eagle has a much longer history than the Russian state. It was a part of the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, but we have it because, as I said, it looks both to the east and to the west. And of course, I have it here on this wonderful polo shirt, 100% cotton, incredibly comfortable, incredibly stylish. I wear it to glittering social receptions, as I've pointed out on previous occasions. I wear it when I'm walking my dogs, who are currently floating around this room. And I wear it when I'm working. And I wear other shirts when I'm working too. Polo shirts like this one, T-shirts, amazing shirts, all made amazing high quality, 100% cotton, beautiful colors, wonderful dye, real quality merchandise. And of course, you can also find in our shop books that we do on Russiagate, on Brexit, which expose the kind of things that people like Justin Trudeau do. So go to our shop, learn all about those things from our books.
Alexander, yeah.
Go on.
And, you're saying East and West, and,
yeah,
it made me think, Canada had such a reputation, a history for being a country that, was looking East and West. Absolutely. It always positioned itself to see the world in a much more holistic kind of viewpoint. It wasn't so ideologically, stuck.
It wasn't. You're totally right.
What happened to Canada?
What happened to Canada? Very, very good question. I mean, what has happened to most of the countries what happened to France and Germany and Britain? But Canada is an extreme example because you come from a diplomatic family, and this extraordinary reputation that Canadian diplomacy used to have in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, with all a huge line of Canadian diplomats at the forefront of the work, setting up United Nations peacekeeping forces, brokering deals between the great powers, talking to the Russians, talking to the Chinese, doing everything they could to de-escalate tensions. And they were hugely admired and respected for these things. But all that's gone. And with Justin Trudeau, it's almost exactly the opposite. But there we are. If you want to learn all about these things and engage in these kind of discussions, go to our shop, drink the Duran shop, drink from mugs like this, read our books, wear our shirts, look as stylish as we do, get the kind of admiring glances I get when I wear shirts like this. Alex will show you how. Help the Duran and help yourself.
Just look at the description box for the link, theduranshop.com. Thank you, Alexander. Until next time, everybody, take care.